next, we have the premiere lecture of Hugh Evans, this is his first proper public lecture sharing his actually remarkable research about some star maps around the sacred mountain of Cadair Idris in North Wales, Snowdonia, where I've been interested in this site. I feature that in my book I've co-authored with Jim Vieira about the giants of Stonehenge in Britain. And Hugh, having read that and seen and discussed it with me, we actually visited this area, and his research there is really quite remarkable. We had a good look around. He showed me all his research. I've read his book, which I do recommend. But Hugh has been studying astronomy and astrology for many years. He's studied astrophysics, aeronautical engineering, and finance, amongst other things. And he's really made a breakthrough with this research. So we kind of collared him, we persuaded him to come and do this lecture and to have his book available because it's unique. It's a little bit different to the Glastonbury Zodiacs, where you get the kind of different animals and figures shaped within the landscape. This is more to do with the constellations shaped over this vast distance across the landscape, and it's very compelling and it all makes sense. And he's also found connections with Enoch and Idris, something I've discussed, Andrew Collins has discussed in the past, and having Welsh heritage from this area. He's found many of the decoding of the place names bring a whole other dimension to this research. So please give a warm welcome for the first time to Megalithomania, Hugh Evans.
Thank you, Hugh, for inviting me to speak today. I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to share with this wonderful community. Thanks also to viewers online. I hope what I say today inspires imagination and adventure for us all in the future. For several years now, I've been researching the star maps of Gwynedd in North Wales, centred on the sacred mountain Cadair Idris. I believe the Star Maps of Gwynedd is the origin of the Zodiac. So people may know their Zodiac star sign, and that it is one of 12, starting with Aries, then follows Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and the Zodiac ends with Pisces. Many Zodiacs have existed before and elsewhere, but I believe the origin of the modern Zodiac we know today is in North Wales. So to help people understand where the star maps of Gwynedd are, let's start at Europe and zoom down to Britain, Wales, and ancient Gwynedd. The star maps of Gwynedd cover 1 million acres, 2,000 square miles, the whole northwest quarter of Wales, all of ancient Gwynedd. Here is shown the 12 signs of the Zodiac. The orange line is the ecliptic, and all the signs sit on that orange line. And now I've added the southern constellations. All the constellations, including stars at the south celestial pole, not visible in Britain, are represented correctly on the star maps of Gwynedd. And now we see the northern constellations added. The entire star map is a vast interconnecting network of stone circles, standing stones, cairns, named mountains and rivers, towns and churches, right down to named fields and houses. And often these field names haven't changed since the stone walls were erected. The star map is centred on the sacred mountain Cadair Idris. And there it is right in the middle. There is the plough constellation mapped in the centre on top of Cadair Idris. I hope you can see that. I believe the star maps of Gwynedd are incredibly old, older than the Sphinx, possibly tens of thousands of years old. If so, I ask you please to consider that this may be the most important ancient artifact on Earth. The star maps suggest an intricate understanding of celestial dynamics, mathematics, geometry, and abilities not hitherto believed possible by ancient people, including the first telescope accurate to the width of a star. Our ancient astronomer ancestors knew the direction of the center of the galaxy thousands of years ago and correctly identified it on the star map. There's X marks the spot. To comprehend this ancient creation, I'd like to put it into context by exploring what is a star map. Today, our star maps are in books or online. I work with Stellarium. Thank you. And Google Earth, which we have just seen. This is a star map of the Plough, Ursa Major. Here is a star map on the ground of the Plough, atop Cadair Idris, that I adapted for my book. But this is also a star map. 12 noon is at the top, mapping the closest star, our sun, at its maximum daily height. Going back in time, star maps were used to demonstrate esoteric meaning for social or religious groups. The Glastonbury Zodiac is a famous field zodiac nearby to where we are today, made in the 1800s. Here we can see zodiacs on church doorways and clock towers, as the west portico of Chartres Cathedral, circa 1200 of the current era, St. Mark's clock tower, St. Mark's Square, Venice, circa 1500. Going back even further in time to the first millennium BCE, before current era, 3,000 years ago, the Egyptian Dendera zodiac on the ceiling of the Temple of Hathor at Dendera is a star map. So is the bronze and gold Nebra sky disk from Germany. Babylonian star myths are shown on this composite star map by Gavin White from his book Babylonian Star Lore. Going even further back in time, the 56 Aubrey holes at Stonehenge map the sun and the moon and are carbon dated 10,000 years old. Göbekli Tepe may show a star map on Pillar 43, created 12,000 years ago, as suggested by Andrew Collins and Rodney Hale in their book, The Cygnus Key. The Lascaux cave drawings in France, estimated at 15,000 years old, showing Taurus and the Pleiades, is a partial star map. I believe the Star Maps of Gwynedd are even older. Could this be where people first charted the heavens? If star maps exist, we find ourselves asking, why make a star map? Today, we take for granted the accuracy and free availability everywhere of time. Imagine if time wasn't free or wasn't available. Imagine if someone controlled time and it wasn't you. At some point in our ancient past, it must have become imperative to understand, control, employ, and forecast time. I believe this is why the Star Maps of Gwynedd were created. And that then asks, who were these people? The people who created the star maps were the Watchers. We are told this in the book of Enoch. That is why the time monitoring device on your wrist is called a watch. When was the last time you watched it? We watch football or a sunset, but not a watch. To understand the Star Maps of Gwynedd and the language of these ancient people, I use several Welsh dictionaries together as the living remnants of ancient British, perhaps the surviving common language of the pre-flood global civilization. From these dictionaries, the watchers are called the Dysgwyli. This is made up of two words and literally means the teachers of festivals or sites. Are the ancient festivals and sites related to the stars? The watchers are also called the Orawyr. This means the timekeepers. Hour comes from this word. How did the watchers keep time? Fixing a framework is necessary. As Earth goes around the sun appears to follow a constant path against the sky and stars. This apparent path of the sun, as seen from Earth, is called the ecliptic. The 12 signs of the Zodiac are the constellations along the ecliptic. The planets rotate around the sun in the same plane, so they appear to move along the ecliptic through the same constellations of the Zodiac. Fixing the constellations and monitoring the movement of the planets allows the measurement of time and also planning of the future. There are 12 constellations of the Zodiac, and Jupiter's orbit is 12 years. Jupiter travels 1 year in each constellation of the Zodiac. Mars' orbit is 2 years, so Mars spends 2 months in each constellation. This is a picture of the night sky tonight. You can see the planets in a line with the sun. This is the ecliptic. By observing the planets and zodiac signs, a unique date can be created. This date is the same simultaneously all over the Earth and creates a global time system. There is no point creating this system unless you wish to communicate over time and over the surface of the Earth together. Today's unique date is 5 quarters of the moon, Venus and Jupiter in Pisces, Mars and Saturn in Aquarius. This date doesn't need a start point like 2022. This date is time itself. The ancient civilization that built the Star Maps of Gwynedd were global in outlook. They understood all the stars and knew it was important to keep time and communicate over the surface of the Earth. It makes no sense that the star map was built only for the people of North Wales. They would have had no use for it on their own. Who were these ancient people who made the Star Maps of Gwynedd? We are told in the book of Enoch that Enoch and the Watchers charted the heavens. I was at the November 2009 Megalithomania Origins Conference when Hugh Newman presented that Enoch was known as Idris in ancient British mythology, one of the great astronomers of Britain who mapped the heavens from his chair atop the sacred mountain Cadair Idris. Here is Idris, drawn by Dan Lish from Giants of Stonehenge and Ancient Britain by Hugh Newman and Jim Vieira. A Cadair is a chair, but it has another meaning. Like a committee, it is a controller. And who was Idris? Id means Lord, and Ris means chief, points, and courses. Idris is the chief astronomer of the courses that charted and controlled the stars and planets. Genesis chapter 5 verse 24 says, "And Enoch walked with God, for God took him." The third book of Enoch, chapter 72 verse 1, has more detail. Enoch received instruction from Uriel about the courses of the luminaries of heaven, according to their names and places of origin, and according to their months, and how it is with regard to all the years of the world, and until eternity. I believe we are told a recipe for creating a time system. Names, origins, months, years, eternity. Chapter 72, verse 15 tells us that Enoch received his instructions from Uriel, where the month of the winter solstice has days half as long as the nights. This only happens at 52.5 degrees north on Earth, as we can see from this chart. The mountain Cadair Idris is 52.7 degrees north. I think I need to improve my graph. The first book of Enoch describes the exact location in chapter 17, verse 1. And they brought me to a mountain, the point of whose summit reached to heaven, and I saw the places of the luminaries and the treasuries of the stars. And I came to a river of fire, in which the fire flows like water and discharges itself into the great sea towards the west. The Afon Mathach flows to the west in the valley under Cadair Idris and into the Irish Sea. At sunset, it glows red like a river of fire. This picture is from my book. Chapter 18, verse 8 continues, I saw at the end of the earth the firmament of heaven above, 7 mountains of magnificent stones, one of grey, one of pearl, one of red jacinth, but in the middle one reached to heaven like the throne of God, of black alabaster, and the summit of the throne was of blue sapphire. The 7 peaks of the throne Cadair Idris, representing the constellation the Plough, are called Craig D is black, Cered Cochion, red rocks, Tuair D, black tower, Craig Chlas, blue stones, Craig Chlúd, grey stone, Cerrig Gwynedd, white stones. Thanks to Lawrence Main for this information. The book of Enoch is very specific about the location. So why was Gwynedd chosen to be the place of the star maps? Britain is an island, North Wales is very remote, so the location is very secure. It doesn't suffer earthquakes, tidal waves, volcanoes, which is important if you need measurement consistency over very long periods of time. The climate is mild, grass grows all year round and sustains life easily. The mountain Cadair Idris is prominent. It is near the sea, which is a useful flat datum. There are many peaks about, allowing many measurements and checks to be made through the year. And at 52.5 degrees north, the day length can be checked accurately at the solstices. And being halfway between 45 and 60 degrees north, it makes for the most accurate estimate for the spring equinox, the start of a new year, and the constellation Aries. The Star Maps of Gwynedd have been ideally located by a global people who perhaps searched for the best location across the world, knowing all their requirements beforehand. So how old are the Star Maps of Gwynedd? Cadw Welsh heritage suggests Bronze Age, but probably they are Stone Age. Neolithic, 5,000 years old. That is a standing stone at Llynau Cregennan that I've been to with Hugh Newman, and it looks pretty Stone Age to me. The Bible tells us that Enoch was great-grandfather of Noah, suggesting a date of at least 6,000 years old. If Pillar 43 of Enclosure D at Göbekli Tepe shows the constellations and the Star Maps of Gwynedd are the origin of the Zodiac, then the Star Maps of Gwynedd may be older than Göbekli Tepe, which has been carbon dated at 12,000 years old. Could the star maps be even older? There may be a telescope built into the landscape, focused at the rising of the bright star Sirius. Ancient astronomers understood that Sirius, moves in a repeating coupled relationship with our sun. And I believe they built this telescope to monitor the movement of Sirius over this cycle. The Sun-Sirius cycle is 26,000 years. How many times must you watch a 26,000-year cycle to be sure it repeats and then decide to monitor it? And why? Is there a linked recurring event? We still don't know the full Sirius cycle today, with all our satellites, space telescopes, and supercomputers. When I studied astrophysics, we weren't taught about this thing. The telescope is 5.15 miles long, exactly 10,000 megalithic yards, from the stone circle Ched Croin Ich. The telescope is in 2 or 3 sections, and perhaps accurate to the width of a star. The ancient people even called it a telescope in their language. Frid Istrid means direction of the sight's scope. The prefix ust indicates a device, something that has been manufactured. A rid rich is a trench or a furrow. Ched Croin Ich means broad beam skin of the ox. It has a second meaning, latitude, sphere of the elevation. Here is Sirius represented on the Dendera Zodiac, Egypt, as an ox on the beam of a boat. The Egyptians called Sirius Sobdet, represented by S, Sir, star, P, Pour, balance, and T, Titian, cake. They are the Welsh translations of those letters, implying tid, chain, tidmwy, tether, tie. I use Ross Broadstock's Cymroglyphics and Wilson and Blackett's Moses in the Hieroglyphs for translating Egyptian hieroglyphs using Welsh. Egyptians knew Sirius as tethered in balance with our sun. Sirius is from the Greek serios, from the Welsh sech. In our dictionaries, this means bridled, harnessed. Sirius is the harnessed star with our sun. Sirius is also called the dog star. A dog is a key, and a key is also a holdfast. Cyd is the prefix for words meaning coupled. Sirius is held fast in a coupled relationship with our sun. That is why it is the dog star. Our ancient ancestors knew all this. We have forgotten. Sirius's common explanation and the origin of Latin, Greek, Egyptian, and Babylonian is Welsh, representing an antediluvian culture. The ancient people built a telescope on the Star Maps of Gwynedd to monitor the movement of Sirius over the 26,000-year coupled relationship with our sun. Perhaps we will never know how old the Star Maps of Gwynedd are with certainty. The constellations change with time and need to be remapped. I wish to convey the incredible capability of these ancient people. They named the planets and stars. Mars, Mawrth, means the greatest. Mercury, Mercher, the quickest, most erratic. Venus, Gwynedd, the brightest. Jupiter, Ei, the youngest. Juvenile comes from this word. Our ancient astronomers' ancestors witnessed the arrival of Jupiter into our solar system and named it to reflect this event. The best estimate of this cosmic car crash occurred when Schultz's star moved through our solar system 70,000 years ago, and Jupiter changed its orbital dependence to our sun, displacing Saturn's dominance and creating the origin of much mythology. The Star Maps of Gwynedd might be the only surviving artifact of these ancient people. They spanned the globe, navigated the oceans with ease, and understood the heavens to a far greater extent than we do today. They created a system for measuring and employing time to make sense of the world, and they did this an astonishingly long time ago. How did these ancient people create the Star Maps of Gwynedd? There are 3 types of constellations mapped on the ground. The first type are those constellations that are a close fit with the bright stars above, such as the Plough, which we have already discussed. The second type are those constellations that have distinct patterns in the night sky above, but which don't have clear features on the ground below. In the right star map location, these constellations have been made on the ground below with lakes, stone circles, cairns, standing stones to reflect the stars above. The constellation Corona Borealis is a good example. A ring of stone circles and standing stones, and we saw a picture of one a little earlier, have been made to reflect the stars above. And 2 lakes have been created by building artificial thresholds. You can just see them as shaded in blue. This constellation represents the goddess Arianrhod and her wheel of time and fate of mankind, half in the mortal world and half in the underworld, the wheel dipping into the underworld through the lakes. And the third type of constellation are those that do not have distinct patterns in the heavens above. So the stars in the constellations above were chosen to reflect the ground features below. Good examples are Pisces and Aquarius. Some nearby brighter stars have even been excluded from these constellations. This is the proof that the Star Maps of Gwynedd is the origin of the Zodiac. Such was the confidence of these people that the Star Maps of Gwynedd actually determined what stars were grouped in specific constellations in the heavens above, not the other way around. The constellation Cepheus is the king of the night skies and is located at the very top of the heavens. There are not many distinct peaks on the ground in this location of the star map, so the constellation is represented by a huge forest called Coed y Brenin, forest of the king. Forest is a metaphor of a great space, implying the universe. The king is called Bellimor in ancient mythology. He is thousands of years older than Zeus. Bellimor means maximum outside perimeter. We get the word Bailey from this. It implies the universe, and he holds up the stars. He is portrayed by the wolf, because a wolf is called a Bella. The name Cepheus, which is Latin, comes from the Greek Kephes, and our dictionaries say this is from Kephin, meaning back or support. Bellimor supports the heavens. There is Bellimor on the left. I did this painting because when I did a Google search, there was 1 million pictures of Zeus, but not a single picture of Bellimor. Uranus had the same role in the Roman pantheon of gods. An Us, the container of the universe. Ani means to contain in Welsh. The U suffix creates a name, and we get Anu, the oldest Sumerian god that contained the universe. It also explains the meaning of Aran mountains in Gwynedd that contain the star maps, including the highest peak, Aran Bolthwy. Cadair Idris is the second highest peak by a few meters. Aran means upon, to contain, a good description of the celestial heavens. Haran in Turkey also gets its origin from this, as does Karahan, Tepe. The plough chosen as the image of the constellation is an Arad, implying upon us at the top of the celestial heavens. A bear is an Arth, hence being used as the emblem for Ursa Major. And Ursa Major has the meaning Ur-Sa, the stars upon us. The wolf is shown at the center in the most important position on the Egyptian and Babylonian zodiacs, despite being a pariah like the bogeyman in these cultures. Why the center, this important position? Because both these ancient cultures inherited their mythology and star maps from a previous, more ancient antediluvian culture. At Göbekli Tepe, Pillar 43 shows a wolf in the correct position for Cepheus Bellimore. Let's have a look at Pillar 43 of Enclosure D at Göbekli Tepe in more detail. I have highlighted the shapes on the pillars, on that pillar. And I agree with Andrew Collins and Rodney Hale's interpretation of Pillar 43. I believe the most important message is to represent the Milky Way as it crosses the ecliptic at Scorpio, and to date the site by identifying the pole star as Vega. We can see Centaurus, Scorpio, the stinger tail of the Pabil Sag, which is the Egyptian and Babylonian representation of Sagittarius, and I have inserted a small image there of Sagittarius from the Dendera zodiac with its stinger tail. And we can also see the line of the ecliptic. The actual T shape of the pillar has the top part of the T where the ecliptic is. It's an extremely important part of that pillar. I think the bird is the eagle, constellation Aquila, with short wide wings and a hooked beak. The circle is Vega, the pole star at 12,000 years ago. Cygnus and the circumpolar constellations are at the top, Cassiopeia, Cepheus and Draco. And I have seen a video recently that Hugh Newman has put up on his channel. We see a lion, I think, on the side of Pillar 43. And on the reverse side, which is now hidden, I'm expecting to see a bull and maybe the Pleiades. The origin of the name Scorpio is from Wales, where there are no scorpions. Asgore, pig, o means the point of encircling at the bulwark. The bulwark is the ecliptic, separating the mortal world and the underworld. Scorpio is the point at which the encircling Milky Way crosses the ecliptic. This explanation may have been taken to Göbekli Tepe and applied to an animal living there. Does this suggest that the culture who built Göbekli Tepe 12,000 years ago inherited their star constellations from the Star Maps of Gwynedd? Did these ancient astronomers leave Britain because it became too cold and re-establish their culture in Anatolia, modern Turkey? We know Göbekli Tepe was carefully covered when the people moved away. Why did they do that? Were they protecting their knowledge? Perhaps they thought they might return. Did these people migrate back to Britain at the time of Enoch, bringing the scorpion image back with them? Is this a recurring migration of peoples? And you can just see the sign for Sagittarius there in the bottom left. The line crossing the arrow is the ecliptic, and the arrow is the direction of the Milky Way. My own journey understanding the star maps started at the central sacred mountain of Cadair Idris. I'd heard Hugh Newman talk of the great astronomer Idris and Cadair Idris, and I'd read other books, including Awen by Mike Harris, who had identified Ursa Major and Ursa Minor. My cousin Caledrin also delivered post on Cadair Idris years ago. I worked over the ground maps, translating place names, and slowly the vast construction materialized out of the landscape. A big breakthrough was to understand that the rivers were the ecliptic of the star map. And you can see the ecliptic there marked with an orange line. Once this became clear, all the zodiac constellations revealed themselves in sequence. The other constellations then fit in between in their proper places. Only when considering the constellations in their proper places, with their adjacencies, in their original language, do the meanings of their names, positions, and roles make sense. It is by design that Gemini, the twins, is placed between a bull, Taurus, and a crab, Cancer. It is not random. Gem, Min, I means the boss on the edge, the crossing of the Milky Way at the ecliptic. Chli Brai means end of the flow. Libra is the edge of the Milky Way flow as it crosses the ecliptic. Sad E Tor Chri Us means the fixed point of the circle and the chief course. Every constellation has its proper place, and its name explains its location in the heavens. We must add the Milky Way to get a full understanding of these constellations and why they are placed in their locations. The spiritual concepts believed by the ancient people are actually enshrined in the ground features of the star map of Gwynedd and are reflected in the heavens above. Fundamentally, there are three planes: the spiritual plane above, inhabited by our ancestors, the mortal plane where we live, and the underworld. The underworld is not hell, that is a modern creation. The underworld is our last journey on the great ship along the Milky Way from the mortal world to the west to be with our ancestors. Although a trial of the life of the soul, it wasn't something to be feared. The Milky Way joins these three planes. It is the great travelator of spirit, of goodness. This is called Awen in the ancient language. Gwen is a smile, a ray of sunshine, goodwill. The A prefix creates emphasis, like using very. Gwe is the root word for many other words, and itself means a web or a network, and we get awesome from this. Awen, the goodness and spirit of our ancestors, comes into the spirit world on the Milky Way, then passes over the ecliptic at Scorpio and Sagittarius into the mortal world. The goodness of the Milky Way rises to the top of the celestial heavens at Cepheus and Cassiopeia, the king and the queen. At which point the Awen flows down from Don's cauldron, the W of Cassiopeia, into the Avon Devry-Dwy. Thank you, Lawrence. And the rivers of the mortal world. Avon Devry-Dwy means river of divine water. Only this water was used by the Druids in their ceremonies. The Milky Way crosses the ecliptic again from the mortal world into the underworld at Gemini and Cancer and flows down into the underworld. There sails the great ship constellation on this stream of benevolence, taking the departed souls on their last journey to the west, to be with the ancestors, to enrich and begin the circle again. The spiritually important constellation, the Great Ship, was broken up in 1930. This is what it looks like reconstructed. The epic of creation also appears to be enshrined in the constellations above and mapped on the ground below. Cadair Idris and the plough is central to this story. The myths of Hugh Evans or the Sumerian god Enlil are the ploughman, now called the constellation Bootes, and relate to the great progenitor, the notional originator of our civilization. Together with his consort and adjacent constellation Virgo, they planted a vineyard. Our dictionaries translate this metaphor as establish a pure lineage. On this circle, he held the plough, joined to the harness Auriga that bridled the bull Taurus and ploughed the great field, now called the constellation Pegasus. As these structures and notions became clearer, other patterns emerged from the landscape of Gwynedd. I had to pinch myself, but every major star in the heavens above, including those in the southern hemisphere, invisible in Britain, are represented accurately on the star maps by a St. Mary's church. And there are no other St. Mary's churches on the star map area. Why Mary? What does it mean? The towns are identified with mare, or the softly muted fair. This means eminence, radiance, or glory. Such was the importance of the stars to our ancient ancestors. Gwyn means white, what is fair. It is emblematic of the heavens generally and can relate to the stars specifically, hence Gwynedd. The St. Mary's churches stand on ancient sacred sites containing yew trees thousands of years older than the churches. Ancient Hermetic belief would suggest a masculine energy exists to complement the feminine St. Mary. These masculine locations are the St. Michael churches. As the St. Mary's churches, there are no other St. Michael's churches on the star map area except in their proper places, and they too are located on sacred circles with ancient yew trees. The St. Michael's churches are in towns with the name Llan Fihangel. Why Michael? What does it mean? Who was St. Michael? Michael is mentioned several times in the book of Enoch, but only once in the Bible. In the book of Revelations, chapter 12, verses 7 to 12, Michael is the guardian angel who protects the mortal world, battling with the serpent at the gates of the underworld. And that is where we see St. Michael churches on the star maps of Gwynedd. They are located around the ecliptic, the boundary bulwark between the mortal world and the underworld. 4 additional St. Michael's churches seem to be protecting the flow of goodness of Arwen on the Milky Way as the Milky Way enters, 2 of them, through the spiritual world, and 2 are protecting the Milky Way as it exits through the underworld. What does Fihangel mean? The Fi, or softly muted Mi, for Michael means boundary edge. Han means separation. Angi is mortal danger. Angen is fate, destiny. And El is a spirit, intelligence, or elementary being. Michael is the elementary spirit at the boundary separating the mortal world, guarding our fates. This is St. Michael. It is what St. Michael did, and it is where the St. Michael's churches are located on the star map. The Star Maps of Gwynedd is a vast, ancient, interconnecting physical and spiritual world, built on an incredible cosmic scale of time, space, and comprehension, created many thousands of years ago by intelligent, insightful people and maintained faithfully up to the present. It is all there for people to see today. So how does this all make sense? What were the ancients up to? A clue is that celestial isn't Latin. It is much older. The ancients were creating a star matrix, a vessel. S is star, chlestra is matrix vessel, celestial. A matrix is something interrelating in part and whole. A vessel is something to hold and to travel in. This matrix vessel, the sphere of the heavens, is created by 3 rings. 2 rings and it would collapse, it would not be sustainable. 3 rings creates and sustains the sphere. All the constellations are located on these 3 rings. These 3 rings created by our ancient ancestors have distinct and interreliant meanings. The first ring is the Zodiac around the middle. It is the boundary between the mortal world and the spiritual and underworlds. The 12 constellations relating to the months of the year are located on the ring of the Zodiac. And as an aside, Zodiac is not Greek. It comes from Zodiac, which means superior winding. And in Welsh, the Zodiac is called Caer, City. And Caer is a circle, but also a fort or a bulwark. The second ring is the Milky Way, representing the passage of life from the spirit of our ancestors, crossing as we are born into the mortal world, nurturing us as we live our mortal lives. And as we pass, the Milky Way crosses down into the underworld. Our soul journeys on the great ship to join our ancestors to be returned, completing the cycle. Perhaps this is the origin of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. The third ring is the epic of creation, a collective sense of the evolution of civilization emerging from the abyss below and creating therefrom a pure lineage. This is also a cycle of renewal that our ancestors appreciated, having arisen from the ashes of many previous cataclysms and disasters. There is one ring to bind these 3 rings. One concept that defines them all and only makes sense of each individually and combined when considered with the other 2. That one ring is time. This was the collective genius and understanding of our ancient ancestors, a state of awareness that we struggle with even today. We have no understanding of the recurring cycles of evolution, for example. The ring of the Zodiac is time as it passes in every moment, constant and unceasing. It is the winding of time. The word Zodiac, I've said that. The ring of the Milky Way is the passing of time of the person and their soul from birth, the now, and through to eternity. And the third ring, the ring of the epic of creation, is the time within which civilization exists, from dawn, rising from the last fate, Genesis, until dusk, the end of days, Revelations. The heavens are time itself, and it was determined comprehensively and completely on the Star Maps of Gwynedd many thousands of years ago. Incredibly, there is a single word that better represents this overall concept, the uniqueness and interdependence of these 3 superior rings of time. That word is amsa. It means time. But in the verbal tradition, depending on context, It can also mean date, season, or period. Our ancient ancestors crafted this word carefully because it is made up of two components: Ser, which is stars, and Am. As a conjunction, it means for because. As a preposition, it means about, beyond. As a prefix, it is synonymous with circum, like circumference or circumspect. And as a noun, it also means notion or idea. Each of these different uses of Am are represented in the three rings of the stars. Circum, the zodiac; because, creation; about, beyond, the journey of the soul on the Milky Way. Together, these are the notion, the idea of time. In The Origin of the Zodiac, I compare how different ancient cultures saw the constellations, demonstrating the common antediluvian origin of these disparate cultures' mythologies. I describe the star charts, where they are on the ground, on the area of Gwynedd. I also suggest how the signs of the zodiac were determined. For example, you can see the sign for Aquarius there. I realised the two wavy lines were Egyptian hieroglyphs. Using cumroglyphics and Wilson and Blackett's work, these can mean, they have two or three meanings. They can mean water or to carry. Two wavy lines means the water carrier, which is Aquarius's name. So we have another link between Egypt and this ancient civilization. The Origin of Time is my second book that extends and completes work started in my first book, The Origin of the Zodiac. The Origin of Time will be available at the end of 2022. In The Origin of Time, I identify the constellations not located in the first book, for example, the unicorn, and I further examine and explain the meaning of each constellation, Gem, Min, I, for example. I have worked through all the ancient British constellations, as presented in the Bardas by Iolo Morganwg, and identified their proper meanings. For example, the constellation Culum Cancer, now we listen to it, we can hear Cancer quite clearly. It has no meaning in any language except Welsh, the living remnant of the ancient language spoken by the people who defined the constellations. Culum is a knot, Can is a rim, hoop or host, and Care is a fort or bulwark. Cancer is the knot where the host of the Milky Way hoop crosses the bulwark of the ecliptic between the mortal world and the underworld. I'm also posting on YouTube work that complements both books. The Star Maps of Gwynedd have been rediscovered. Please help ensure they're not lost again. Subscribe, share, and join the community. Here you can see some of the subjects I'm also investigating. The Eye of Horus explained. I'm going to be doing all the individual signs of the zodiac and the planets. Amser is a wonderful name for the Star Maps of Gwynedd. But the ancient astronomers created an even better name. Today, Snowdonia is called Eryri, which we are told means the eagles. And for sure, an Eryr is an eagle. The eagle is the greatest of all birds, circling majestically above, beholden to none, swooping down in magnificent circles. But does this beautiful hawk emblematically represent the three circles of time? Snow is Era, and Din is a city, place, or stronghold. Snowdon means the place of the eagles. We have more layers of rich interest and profound meaning. Ris means on account of the chief courses. Are these the three rings of time? And Eril means an order, a method, and a watch. The Erilri are the watchers, the timekeepers, the time lords. Thank you for your time.
Wow, that was really cool, Hugh. Thank you so much. I've been exploring with Hugh at some of these sites in North Wales, so once you get out into that landscape, you realise there's something quite profound going on, especially as you have megaliths actually marking some of the routes, some of the edges of some of the constellations as well. So thanks again, Hugh. Really appreciate that.